demanded anything. We just did what we thought was right. And I think the current representatives of the Kiev regime could do the same if they truly wanted that. However, if they want to use the elections solely to put an end to Russia's advancement on the battlefield, then they are wrong. That said, I'm going to say something which is probably going to sound surprising. We are willing to think about how to ensure security during elections in Ukraine. Well, we could refrain from strikes in the depths of Ukrainian territory on election day. But there is one nuance which we cannot circumvent, namely, in the territory of Russia, there are millions of Ukrainian citizens living from 5 million to 10 million, and they are entitled to vote. And if elections were to be held, we have the right to demand that those who organize these elections should provide the right to cast their ballot to those Ukrainians who are currently residing in the territory of the Russian Federation. There are other nuances that have to be studied laboriously, but this is no idle matter. I do agree that the authorities in Ukraine sooner or later have to become legitimate, and that is impossible without elections. Let's move to this sector, Siberia. Mr. President, good afternoon. Hi, my name is Denis Shaluta. I'm a blogger from Siberia. I've got a TG channel. I cover social, economic news and the development of Siberia. Since October this year, there are rumors circulating around the establishment of a cluster for deep processing of rare earths and non-ferrous metals. Do you think this is the best solution to provide our economy with critical metals and to relaunch Russia's industrialization? Because the prospects are enormous, they're huge. There is a will at the level of the Russian government to complete this project. This is a very interesting project. And, you know, right along the line, these plans were formulated back during the Soviet times. This region is very promising in that it has almost 360 sunny days. Even though it's in Siberia, the climate is very good. And there are huge opportunities to extract minerals and process them. You know, the logistics is very good. Certainly, this cannot be addressed the way it used to be during the Soviet times, you know, through Gosplan and through allocating the requisite budgetary resources. That has to be done via modern means.
We need to make companies interested so that they would invest and the state would provide the necessary support. In general, such work in order to implement projects on this promising land is underway. I think it is very promising. We are finding investors, potential companies that could invest, and we need to support them, provide the necessary benefits and services, create logistics as well as the sources for power generation, so on and so forth. I'm not going to give the whole list because this could be a large-scale historical task. We will keep working on it without any doubt. Mail, please. Hello. Good afternoon. Thank you very much for the opportunity to ask a question. Mr. President, you have said repeatedly You've reminded that the Russian culture is the backbone I'm sorry about that. Just don't worry. Well, you say that this is the basis for the development of society. It's important to preserve historical memory and the cultural diversity of Russian peoples. What are the cultural projects and initiatives priority for you personally? And will Russia protect the Russian-speaking people abroad? You spoke about prioritizing. Yes, I spoke about prioritizing the cultural projects, and will Russia protect Russian-speaking people and the Russian language abroad? And the question is, will there be created a program in Russia, a program for people that will be specializing on fighting information war being waged against us by the West? Are we going to create a specialty that will be program for specialists concerning information wars? The next question is about the prestige of the work of teachers. Well, regarding the protection of our compatriots abroad, of course we will work on that, and we're working on it. We'll keep doing that. What I would like to draw attention to is what we're going to do about that. We need to do everything not to make the situation of our compatriots even worse, so we need to be very careful without using aggressive means. As for training information wars experts, well, it's not really combinable. As for the war experts, we have such. We'll keep training them, given that this is the part of improving armed forces. As for the work with the compatriots in total, this work is underway. We'll continue it. We need to introduce modern instruments so that they would be effective, so that they would be accessible for the consumers. As for the separate, meaningful cultural projects, there are many of them. I would not like to give any specific projects because it creates an unhealthy competition, meaning that we support one projects and do not support the others. But there are such projects, and we will support them. You can be sure of that. Vesiam Skorist, please. Hello. It was the poster was held by a young man because I'm really was tired. I'm from Tatarstan Republic. My colleague from Kazan has already asked a question. Thank you very much for M12. It's really easy to travel from Moscow to Kazan with children, with family, but we always want something more. Well, you understand by my poster, there is a high-speed highway. Is there any chance that our children would use it? Are you speaking about the high-speed railway? Yes. Yes, we are already working on design. For instance, St. Petersburg-Moscow railway, and we're also going to implement the Moscow-Kazan project. Thank you very much for our joint work. Thank you.
Please be seated. I'll remind you that we will receive the applications and questions until the end of the program. You can either use the phone number 8800 200 40 40, send an SMS or MMS to 04040, or use the social media of contacting the Klasniki, or use the website moscowputin.rf, or use the chatbot on Max Messenger, used for the first time, and this is a very, very popular channel today. Now we have more than 2.5 million questions, and we're about to begin asking President Putin questions. And just a couple of words, Ekaterina and I have sifted through tens of thousands of your questions.
From all across Russia, from abroad, and of course out of these 2 million questions there are messages from different people. Understandably, many of these topics are overlapping, and we've tried to systematize, to classify the questions, to make sure that we cover the topics that are of relevance to millions of people. And understandably, there's one topic that is of the greatest importance to everyone. There are many issues and questions on social policies, but in the forefront are the issues of peace and war. You've said on multiple occasions that we are okay with how the things are going at the battlefront, but is it going to be peace, or is it going to be continuation, given what Zelensky is saying? So far, we're not seeing the willingness, but let's remember what all of this started from. It was back with the coup d'etat in Ukraine back in 2014, as well as the deception about there being a possibility to address all of the issues via Minsk agreements. But afterwards, in 2022, when everything was on the verge, when the Kyiv regime, the Ukrainian regime, basically unleashed a war in the southeast part of Ukraine, we said that we would have to recognize the unrecognized republics. It would be better if you leave these people in peace and let them leave without Russophobia, without coup d'etat. Just withdraw your troops from there. Back then, they didn't want to do that, and after Istanbul, at first, they basically initialed those drafts, and then they basically threw them in the bin. And this is what we're seeing right now. They're basically refusing to finish this conflict via peaceful means. That said, we are seeing things, and we know there are signals, including from the Kyiv regime, indicating that they are willing to engage in some type of dialogue. The only thing, and I would like to say something that we've been saying for quite some time, we are willing to put an end to this conflict via peaceful means based on the principles that I outlined in July last year when I spoke at the Foreign Ministry of Russia. The root causes that brought about this conflict have to be addressed. Mr. President, the situation on the battlefront is changing day in, day out. We know that you follow everything almost in real time, talking to our heroes, to our soldiers, but the situation is changing on a daily basis. Our soldiers are getting ahead audaciously and steadily. As Commander-in-Chief, what's your assessment of the current state of affairs? I've just listened to the report by the head of the General Staff. On the whole, I can tell you that right after our troops expelled the adversary from the Kursk region, the initiative, the strategic initiative, to be more precise, is firmly in the hands of the Russian armed forces. What does it mean? It means that our forces are advancing along the whole line of contact. At some places, they are moving ahead faster, sometimes slower, but everywhere along the line of contact, the adversary is being pushed back. And most importantly, and we started with this, you said, and I said, that there were proposals to the Kyiv regime to withdraw their troops from those unrecognized, back then they were unrecognized republics, who didn't want to leave under the yoke of the Kyiv nationalists. By then, the Kiev regime had been building fortified positions in the agglomeration of Slavyansk and Kramatorsk, Konstantinovka. This was the most fortified region. So let's start with what is currently unfolding over there. Just recently, the head of the General Staff, the head of the group of forces, as well as the local commanders, the head of the brigade that I received at my office, reported me on having taken Seversk, which is an important settlement, and from there it's possible to move closer to one of the most fortified regions, to part of this agglomeration, which is Slavyansk. A little to the south from there, our armed forces active in the South Liman direction. The troops are in the city already. The battle is raging, and very soon it'll be taken. A huge percentages under our control, but the advancement is going to continue. I said that Konstantinovka is part of this agglomeration, and the battle is already there. More than 50% of Konstantinovka is under Russian control. I have no doubt whatsoever that this settlement is going to be taken as well. There was an important development, namely the taking of Krasnoarmeysk. Because from Krasnoarmeysk, you know, the competent level of the armed forces will have to make a decision on which direction to take, but this is a very good bridgehead to continue offensive operations. And to the south, northeast, there is the city of Dmitrov, which is also an important bridgehead, and it is completely encircled. I think around 50% of the city will have been taken by our forces. By now, the adversary did not get an order or the command to lay down arms. They're trying to break the encirclement, moving in small groups. They're undertaking attempts to take back at least parts of Krasnoarmeysk, in vain so far. The adversary is sustaining significant losses and seeing no success. Another group of Russian armed forces, East Vostok Group, is making great headway across Zaporozhye region, liberating one settlement after another. As you know, currently the battle is taking place in Hulai-Polye. The city is divided by a river into two parts. The biggest is on the opposite part of the river. This barrier has been bridged, and the battle is raging inside the city, but an important part of the group of force of Vostok is moving even further, liberating one settlement after another in Zaporozhye region. Moreover, safety and security zones are being set up in Sumy region, the city of Volchansk, in Kharkov region, as is well known. Currently, several weeks ago, Kupiansk was taken by the Russian forces. So far, our forces are not moving, but they are in control. The thing is, their most important task is to eliminate the group of the forces of the adversary on the left bank of Oskol River and to take another settlement, which is basically a hub, a transport hub, which is Kupiansk-Uzlovoy. There is a group of forces that is encircled there, 15 battalions, 3,500 soldiers who didn't get a command to withdraw either, and they have no chances whatsoever. They are heavily encircled by the Russian armed forces. And once it happens, once our units have completed their task, they will move further west. I'm confident that by the end of the year, we will have seen new successes by our armed forces, by our soldiers, by our warriors at the line of contact. And what about Seversk? What is the current state of affairs? And why was it so difficult to take this settlement? You must have seen, you must have heard the briefing of the head of the general staff, as well as the head of the group of forces, the group of armies, the commander, as well as the head of the brigade that is engaged in hostilities there. I asked him, what's your current take on the situation in Seversk? Are you firmly in control? He said, Mr. President, we are moving even further west, 1.5, 2 kilometers. My brigade has already made that movement in the west, and this movement is continuing. You probably remember there was this briefing on Seversk, and we had a report of the assault group from the spot, from Seversk. If you remember, at the end, I asked them to change their position as soon as possible once the report was over. And I think it was yesterday, because time is flying by. We had a meeting at the Ministry of Defense, and once the collegium was over, there was an award ceremony for our warriors. Was it yesterday or the day before yesterday, Yeah, there was an award ceremony for those who participated in the liberation of Seversk, and once that was over, I went back to the Kremlin, to my office, and I asked the head of the assault group to come by, see me, because I wanted to talk to him about the current agenda. I do that from time to time when an opportunity presents itself. And we also had a meeting on the preparations for today's event, and he came straight to the room of the Security Council, and I asked him to say a couple of words so that every colleague can hear what's the current state of affairs in Seversk, how it happened, and he started recounting, just a couple of words, very briefly. And once he went away, colleagues asked whether we could invite him to the direct line. I said, well, you can ask him, but his leave is not that long, so, we phoned him, and he's here. He agreed. Naran Alexeyevich. There he is. Naran, is that correct? Yes, please, be seated. Take your seat, yeah. Am I correct? Is this how this happened? Yes. If you've got any questions about what is happening in Seversk and how the liberation took place, you can ask him directly. I think it's going to be better. Let's give a round of applause to a hero of Russia. Let's welcome him. Naran Alexeyevich, we saw you during that TV bridge, but we don't know you personally. Can you tell us a little bit about yourself? Where are you from? How long have you been participating in the special military operation? Where did you start? I'm from Kalmykia. I started from Solidar. First, I was just an assault soldier, and now I'm head of the assault unit. Well, he started just as a driver, and right now he's a head of an assault unit, and more than 80 people are under his command. And he's also a hero of the Russian Federation. Don't be modest. Naran Alexeyevich, colleagues, journalists, must have seen this this meeting between President and yourself and the colleagues. The communication was spotty at best because of the signal. Right now, we've got more time, and could you tell us a little bit about how Siversk was liberated? We would very much like to learn how it happened. Of course, share what you can share, what your soldiers did. I can repeat my question. I said when he came to the room of the Security Council, what was the most difficult? Well, the most difficult thing was to get to Seversk in secret because, you know, these were open fields. There were no natural shelters. That's why a decision had been made to move in small groups clandestinely, and we managed to perform this task. We managed to accumulate forces right under the nose of the adversary, and once the accumulation happened, we waited for the command to start assault. There were many civilians that were staying in Seversk. What was the attitude of the armed forces of Ukraine to civilians? For quite some time, the civilians had been living, how shall I put it? Well, yes, they've been living in fear under the pressure of the adversary, and once we managed to liberate our zone, that was our responsibility. We started to talk to the civilians, and they told us that the Ukrainian armed forces had been behaving just like nationalists, shooting those who didn't want to evacuate with them. So civilians didn't have any arms, and they were shot out because they were willing to stay in the city just for this simple fact. And once our armed forces arrived there, how were you welcomed? When we came, people were in a very difficult state, both physically and morally, and when they saw us, they were very happy. They had been listening in secret to Russian radio, waiting for us to arrive, and they were very happy. Naran Alexeyevich, you said that when the armed forces of Ukraine were withdrawing, they were shooting the civilians, and back then you said that they were shooting down young people, yes, especially young people under 30, under 40. They were simply taken away without judge and summarily shot down without exception. What's your current take on what's happening in this part of the front line? On the whole, it's stable. As I reported to Mr. President, we moved even further beyond Seversk. Naran Alexeyevich, when we look at you, when we listen to you, we want to repeat once again that our warriors are true warriors, true men. And what's the morale of your guys, of your soldiers, those who are under your command? We are working conscientiously and steadily, pursuing the tasks set before us by the Commander-in-Chief, and the goals of the Special Military Operations will be accomplished. Naran Alexeyevich, how many people are there under your command, and what are the losses that you've sustained? In my assault group, I've got 157 people, and when Seversk was being liberated, 24 groups had been employed to the total number of 84 people. There were minimum losses because we were moving in small groups. 4 men were lost out of 84. Those 84 had been participating in the assault itself. Let's thank the hero of Russia once again. Now that we've listened to all of that, I would like to ask you, just a week ago, Zelensky allegedly made a video next to the there's a column next to Kupiansk. Many thought it was a fake video. Is that a fake? How Zelensky decided to publish that at such an important, crucial moment? Well, I'm not following that, but, you know, following what he's doing. But he's an artist and a talented one to boot, so there's nothing surprising about that. You know, they're saying that this obelisk looks completely different from what it used to. But be that as it may, this obelisk is 1 kilometer or so from the city. Well, why stay at the threshold? Do come in. If Kupiansk is under their control, why not go in the city itself? And you know, there were some women bloggers. They managed to get by. Luckily, nothing happened to them because, you know, the sky is swarming like with flies, but not with flies, with UAVs, and there are UAVs both from the Ukrainian side, from the Russian side. It's impossible to approach that settlement so easily. A time will come once our soldiers have completed the elimination of the group of forces of Ukraine that is encircled in the east part, and then they will turn and go westward.
It will be very soon. This is just the question of time, if there are no other problems. As for other fake stuff or attempts or at any cost to return the lost positions as it is done now, and I would like to underline that it is done at any cost. The adversary has no success. The problem is that as a result of active and effective actions of our armed forces, the adversary has suffered really serious losses of strategic reserves, and they have almost nothing left. This is a meaningful component, and this should give an impetus to the Kiev regime to solve all the disputes and to end this conflict peacefully. They almost have no reserves. I think that everyone who's watching us and everyone here in the whole war is a grave burden for the economy. Well, as you said, the European baby pigs continue doing everything to destroy Russian economy. Well, in such harsh conditions, can we even think about further economic growth? Somewhere we keep growing in some sectors, but somewhere there is no economic growth. What are these sectors? Well, as usually, I have brought a table with me. It's like that. These are open data. What happened in our economy throughout the previous year? The GDP growth was 1%. But if we take 3 previous years, this is also a correct indicator. The common growth was 9.7%. At the same time, the EU growth was 3.1%. As for the 1% growth this year, these were conscious actions of the government and the central bank and the whole government of our country regarding the targeting inflation. We need to point out that in general, we managed to solve this task. We had a goal to decrease the inflation up to 6%, but by the end of the year, it will be less than 6%, 5.7, 5.8%. But the decrease of the economic growth rate, this is the cost of preserving the quality of the economy, of the macroeconomic indicators. Let's go forward. The industrial production increased by 1%. Manufacturing industry increased 3.1%. As for the agricultural produce, it increased 3.3%. An important question is housing construction. Millions of square kilometers were constructed. Last year, it was 107.8. This year, the indicator is lower, but it is also good, 103, 105 square kilometers, million of square meters. We manage to preserve a very good indicator of real salaries. They're not as high as last year, but still, I think the indicator is very good. The real salaries, without inflation, is going to be 4.5%. Unfortunately, we must be honest, throughout this period of time, the growth of labor productivity is going to be very modest, 1.1%. And we need to change that, of course, in order to increase labor productivity. As for unemployment level, last year I said it was record low historically. It was 2.5%. This year it is even lower, 2.2%. In general, these are very good indicators. International reserves of the central bank are growing. I have just spoken to the governor of the central bank, like just several days ago, $741.5 billion US dollars. As for the budget deficit, budget of the federal budget, 2.6%. Next year, we think that it's going to be 1.6%. As for the 3 years period, it should be around 1.5%. This is a very good indicator regarding our state debt. It's one of the lowest among the developed companies. We have we have spoken with our colleagues. It is 7.7%, and in the next 3 years, it will not be more than 20%. Well, these are the indicators. What is more important, the principal thing is that we have to thank the government for the hard work they have implemented. They managed to balance the budget. The quality of this balancing is of the level of 2021. This is a very important indicator of stability of the economy and financial system of our country. It means that we will be able to fully implement the issues regarding the social obligations to the population, also solve development issues regarding national projects. We will reach technological development goals, as well as, without any doubt, we will ensure the necessities of the armed forces. And all of this combined speaks about the stability of the economy and financial system, which is absolutely under the control of the government and the central bank. Well, the journalists would like also to ask their question. Our format is combined. This is a direct line in the big press conference, so let us start, give the floor to the journalists. Let's start with the center, Siberia. Let's start with Siberia, please. Hello, Mr. Putin. Novosibirsk, Ivan Dvaynichnikov, Gorodskaya Volna Radio. Everyone knows that Novosibirsk is famous. And it's a famous city, and in the recent years, with your support, Siberian Circle photon source was started to be constructed. This is a unique plant, a unique facility, not only for our country, but for the whole world. It will allow us to implement new investigations. Despite sanctions, despite harsh economic conditions, we managed to create fully Russian production. We need to launch it. We are going to launch it next year. The question is it really possible, and what we need to do for the young scientists to work there? next year we're going to launch it, and we are waiting for you at the opening ceremony. Thank you for reminding about this. This is good news, which is very good for everyone participating in the process. This topic appeared during the Council on Science at the auspices of the President of Russia, which was in 2018. The colleagues from the Siberian Institute of Science, the Institute of Nuclear Physics, spoke about the necessity of creating such accelerator. Truly, we had some problems, slowdowns because of sanctions, but we managed to complete this work. This is great, and I would like to thank everyone who had to do anything with this project, and I would like to congratulate you on that. This is truly a success. Well, the same thing goes for the Kurchatov Institute here in Moscow, but this is the second stage facility. A lot has to be changed. We are planning to do that. At the same time, we're going to create the same facility in Vladivostok and in other cities as well. We are going to work on that. As for your facility, SCIF, this is a great success because it gives an opportunity not only to have investigation of a fundamental nature, but also of an applied nature. This is truly important because this will give an opportunity to work in the sphere of pharmaceuticals and new materials, and so on and so forth. But how to keep young experts? We have a whole system that is functioning, but the main thing is that we need to create laboratories, because true scientists are truly talented ones and dedicated ones, and they also, but social aspects are also very important. The salaries, the conditions for living there, and all of this is what we're going to work on. In the future, this is one of our goals. We have a grant system for this and mega grants. We know the scientists that are called mega granters. These are the scientists receiving such mega grants. We have raised this issue at one of the meetings with them. So we need to create conditions so that young experts would keep working there. We need to create a horizon for them to be seen, the horizon of investigation, not for 2 or 3 years, but for 5 years or more. And we have already done this, and this allows us to prevent the outflow of stuff. Many people come back. I have personally spoken to such scientists. These are young experts that used to work abroad, but they come back to Russia, to the native land. And our so-called Western colleagues help us very much in this. Why they come back? First of all, there are great laboratories, great opportunities, but one of the main causes is that they are really concerned about their kids, because it is impossible to send kids to the schools in those countries. Well, we have protection of traditional values on the agenda. And together with the other conditions, they decide to come back to Russia. And there are more and more such people. Well, we'll keep working on all of these tracks. I'll try to come to visit. Let's give 2 more opportunities, a couple of opportunities to the journalists. So please don't shout. Well, I have the Patriarch of the Kremlin Pool, Alexander Gamov, please. Alexander, if you have a question, you haven't raised your hand. Yes, please. Thank you very much. Alexander Gamov, radio and newspaper Komsomolskaya Pravda. Mr. Putin, this year Komsomolskaya Pravda celebrates 100 years since the publication of the first newspaper. We have received an order of valiant labors. Thank you for this high praise. We would like to thank you. I would like to remind that the first direct line was hosted by us. But, well, I have a question from our newspaper. I would like to know how now is developing or implementing the program of the Time of Heroes. You were the initiator of this program. Do you follow this project? How people participating in this program cope with their work? Those people who are now working as the leaders of regions, how justified is this program, and how long we're going to have this program? What other postings we're going to see? Thank you. You know, first of all, let's remember the participants of the Great Patriotic War. Those who were fighting in the fronts of the Great Patriotic War came back. They reached great results in culture, in science and education. When I went to university, I had teachers who were participating in the Great Patriotic War. We respected them greatly. There was those who were gravely injured. I had a teacher who didn't have a leg and he had a prosthesis, but he was an excellent expert in his sphere. We all remember him with gratitude. And we remember the knowledge that he gave us. Let's remember Mr. Nikulin. And there are so many scientists who excelled in their spheres and truly truly were important for the development of our country. And the participants of the special military operation. Let's take Narana Alexeyevich. I couldn't recognize him really because the hall is very big, but he was given a mic and there is a camera, people knowing what they're doing. But when he entered the Security Council in Kremlin, he spoke there and everyone was looking at him very carefully. There is great potential that the guys from the special military operation have. But this is one thing to fight, and there is other thing to be a leader of a team or be a head of a big company or a region or a ministry. You need a talent for that. Of course, there are hundreds of thousands of soldiers in the special military operations zone. Not everyone wants to have such a career, civil career, but those who want and those who have potential, who have education, experience, are ready to receive it. It means that the government must do everything to give such opportunities to these people that are truly ready to fight for the interests of their own country. I've already explained how this idea appeared. I met young people, students. I looked at them. I looked at how they were communicating their ideas. What were their goals? What are the promising goals for the country, by their opinion? So when I listened to them, I had this idea. It's important to give opportunity to such such young people, to stimulate them. Of course, we need to prepare them, to train them, without any doubt. That is why we started this program. I thank the heads of the regions of the Russian Federation for promoting this program regionally. And it is truly functioning, and I'm truly glad for the people who participated in the first stage and the second stage. Some of them have become governors, vice ministers. They work in our biggest companies. Several people work in the presidential administration, and they are truly successful. Of course, there are some difficulties. Some of them may try to work in some other sphere, but the program itself is functioning successfully. Mr. Putin, colleagues, there is a very important piece of news from Brussels. There was the failure, it was a real failure to take their assets. They cannot steal them, but they're trying. But still, they cannot do this. Well, stealing is not really correct definition for that. Stealing, this is when someone is doing it secretly, and they are doing it openly. This is a robbery. This is a robbery. Why they fail to do this? Why they fail to implement this robbery? Because the consequences can be really harsh for the robbers. Why is that? It's really hard to do that, because they declare that they're not going to rob it, to take it. The idea is to make a credit using our assets, but you cannot just give out a loan. This will make consequences for the budget of a country, and it increases the budget debt of every country. If someone gives a loan, even secured by our foreign assets, it must be reflected in the budget of a country that does it.
For example, in France, the public debt is 120%, and ours is at 17%. And our budget deficit is 2.6%. Next year is going to be 1.6%. In France, it is 6% per annum. So, and now they will assume additional liabilities, and it'll be quite hard to pass such a budget. And all these are the reasons for the difficulty of taking decisions related to the robbery of someone else's assets, but there will be graver consequences for those who might endeavor that. This will not be a blow to their image, but this will subvert all the confidence with the euro area. Actually, very many countries store their foreign reserves in the eurozone. Many of those having spare money, like the oil-producing countries, if they have a look at what might be happening, they will have doubts, and they already have doubts and concerns. But what if this happens? You know, well begun, it can be further replicated, they might think. Now, some people dislike the conduct of the special military operation and the fight against neo-Nazism in Ukraine, and next someone might not like the fight, the struggle with the LGBT movement. And the Muslim countries have stringent laws to this respect, and this might be another pretext for the alleged expropriation of sovereign assets. Why not? And they might find other pretexts. So that will entail image-related losses and direct financial monetary losses related to the contemporary financial architecture. And the main thing is, no matter what they steal, sooner or later they'll have to give it back. And most importantly, we will go to courts to protect our interests. We will do our utmost to find a jurisdiction that will be independent from the political context. Let's come to the room and ask questions from the hall. The road of life, I see the sign. Good day, Vladimir Vladimirovich. I'm from the Cominform, the Republic of Komi media outlet. And you know that a big chunk of the Republic of Komi and the Nanets Autonomous District are cut off from the mainland, as there is no direct automobile transportation and connection. So there's a dead end of the automobile road, but at the same time the Syrtevkar, Uhtau, Sinsk-Mar trunk road spanning more than 600 kilometers going through our republic, and that provides for all the year-round procurement for the north and safe traffic for the northern residents. But the bulk of that segment, the biggest part of this segment is in a very deplorable state, and we lack regional funds to repair this road, and Komi has very few federal roads, unlike other regions of Russia. So the proposal, whether this road of life, the only trunk way for the north, can be transferred to the federal property, so that the safe and secure communication with the north is safeguarded. And using this opportunity, I'd like to invite you to the Republic of Komi. In the 2029, the city of Ukhta will mark 100th anniversary. Today, it's the biggest oil and gas center in the north of Russia, and shortly Syrtyvkar will mark 250 years thanks to your decree. And if you are able to come to the festivities, we will be so grateful. It's going to be a historic and landmark visit for us. Well, thank you for the invitation. With respect to the road, I'm aware of this problem. Indeed, transferring all the segments of that federal trunk road to the federal level, as there is a task of raising all federal trunk roads to certain quality standards, and this is almost complete. And now we are tackling the regional roads quality, but it can be broken down into several sub-issues: the northern procurement and the safety, traffic and road safety. So I cannot promise that we're going to start right away tomorrow, but I'll talk to the government, and we'll find a way to respond and react. But thank you for the invitation. Mr. President, yes. So it's a combined format, it's a hybrid format, so we will we'll receive questions from different sources. Channel 1, the third row, this is our front correspondent. I'm Maria Super, war correspondent from Channel 1. I have 3 questions, hope to be succinct. First is from the battlefield drone operators. All of them thank you for the big number of the assault drones. Some of them can stop columns like Prince Vandal of Nizhny Novgorod, but we actually lack hexacopters, the Baba Yaga type. They are used actively in droves by Ukrainians, and we need those to this type too, because the sky is dominated by the drones, and it's even used to carry a bottle of water. So the guys are agog to receive those. And the second question is from the operators. And one of the guys in the trenches told me a baby will be born shortly in my family. Will you miss the front line? I asked him. Yes, I will. And he will miss the control of the UAVs, actually. So we have lots of UAV operators, and their number is increasing, and they also want to continue doing that in peaceful life. As being civilians. Will that come in handy? Will their experience and expertise come in handy? And the final question is from me. We work with a brigade of veterans who are knowledgeable for their underground operations, subterranean subway operations, Avdiivka and Dzержinsk and others. But this brigade, despite all the merits, is called like a voluntary group in many reports of the Defense Ministry. If I may, will you please assign this brigade the name of Guards Brigade, Brigade of Guards, the honorary name? Thank you. I'll start with your final point. The Brigade of Veterans deserves the highest assessments, and they are heroes. But it's not only about risking lives and going through a tube. The point is that they are meticulous and hair-splitting and responsible in preparing each operation of theirs. And a lot of preparations were done with all the driveways and procurement. And exit points and enter points. These are heroes, no doubt. And this brigade deserves the highest assessments, and it should be granted the name of a Guards Brigade. I agree with you. Secondly, the point that you started with, that about control of drones. We are lacking heavy UAVs, and this is what the defense minister and the defense industry are getting to grips with, and the defense minister personally has been looking into the matter, and he has done a lot, and thanks to him, to a large extent, the situation with drones has considerably improved, and the guys on the contact line now feel that, and will keep supporting our contemporary inventors with a system of grants and support measures. And I'd like to thank our caring people and entrepreneurs. They have collected 83 billion rubles of donations, and that was spent on different things, but to a large extent on drones. I must say directly and frankly, one shouldn't shy that. We have become leaders. We still lack those heavy drones like Baba Yaga type, but with respect to the number of drones, we are ahead of our adversary on all the segments of the front line. This is an obvious fact, a hard fact. Now, with respect to the civil life application, in order to confirm this leadership, well, this can be confirmed actually only if those items used in fighting will be applied in civilian, in peaceful life, and it will also be used in, there will be the dual use of these items to improve the combat efficiency of our country, and all the delivery of mail and medicines and food will be conducted with the help of UAVs like the airplane type or small copters, air-based ones. I'm speaking about the UAVs in general, airborne and seaborne, and we are making big headway in this respect, and this will have the support of the government in future. Now, with respect to the fighters on the front line that want to continue doing what they have been doing, well, this is a peculiar thing, because the point is that we continue a good rate of manning, and now we have a lot of volunteers that want to volunteer to the front, conclude contracts to join the army, and they volunteer to defend their motherland and the interests of our people. We just mentioned how the Ukrainian military treat the civilians, and a person told me, when we saw what they did to civilians, we just are agog. We're impatient to move on and finish off this viper. They execute old people, elderly, and they use helicopters to do that, to target civilians, actually. He might be shy because it's the first time that he ends up in such an audience. And more than 406 or 10,000 people have enrolled, concluding a contract, and the number of people who want to do service in this new branch of the army, the unmanned aerial systems branch is so big that the Defense Ministry has to open a call for that. And there are students, young ones, who take an academic leave to sign a contract and join the army, and they participate. They are eager to participate in this competition, and they want to participate as drone operators. So I can understand the person that you spoke to, but actually, even those who come on leave, come home on leave, they continue participating in the fighting because the remote technology allows that. And to follow up on the fighters topic, you said, Mr. President, that it's not a trendy phenomenon, but it's the obligation of the government. So, and we looked through a lot of applications. Paul and I looked through a lot of applications, and GigaChat confirms that this year the number of applications from the fighters and their families is much lower than in the previous year or the penultimate year. So work is underway to assist them, to help them. Still some problems remaining related to delays and the search for the missing. Still a lot is done just in a matter of days. For example, Alexei Gushin from the Lov region wrote to us he was gravely wounded 2 years ago, and he wasn't able to receive a payout of 3 million because not all the documents were available. And finally, the amount was accrued, and one of these days he's to receive the full amount. And the mother of a fallen hero, Lyudmila Orlova from Beloretsk, said that her son lost his life last year and was posthumously decorated with a medal, but she could not receive this medal. And finally, the volunteers looked into the matter, and now the mother has received her son's posthumous decoration. And she tried to get it for a year, and only after caring, attentive, and thoughtful people attended to that, this was resolved. And just yesterday or the day before yesterday, you said at the Defense Ministry College that there is still room for advancement. And now we'll have a look at a video from Kristina from Novosibirsk. Good afternoon. My name is Grebe Kristina. I'm a widow of a fallen serviceman. We live in the city of Novosibirsk, and there are 2 kids left of 4 and 6 years of age. So the question is, currently I would not receive the pension of a fallen serviceman and other benefits. My husband lost his life in January 2024. On the 10th of December that year, I received the death certificate. And, a year passed since then, and we're yet lacking this pension. Can the timeline for consideration of these applications be expedited so that the pension on the grounds of a loss of the breadwinner is allotted on time, should be allotted on time? Christina, first of all, I want to apologize to you for this huge delay of the relevant services, on the part of the relevant services, and in your case it's going to be resolved quickly. But the problem is in existence, and not long ago I had a meeting with Madam Civilova Anna, who reported me on the work of the Fund of Fatherland Defenders, and she's Deputy Defense Minister now, and she has told me that still the proper interaction between the defense ministry and the welfare unit of the government is not properly established, and there is a lot of red tape, and documents are lost while being transferred from one agency to another, and decisions are delayed and postponed, but we will work on that to expedite the thing. I will definitely keep track of that personally. I'll look into this issue. We should be swifter and quicker so that rid people of additional difficulties, like in your case when they have 2 kids left after the tragedy. But there is also another issue pending, which is obvious from some of the questions received via various channels, and Mr. Peskov has handed me a file full of such questions and applications, the search for the missing servicemen, and in the case of Christina, I hope the problem she's faced with is going to be resolved quite quickly without any procrastination.
Now, as for the search for missing in action, this is a topic of particular relevance, and I have to tell you that the Ministry of Defense has taken several steps with a view to addressing this problem. To be more precise, a coordinated center has been set up, which is charged with searching for the servicemen missing in action. Special units have been established in relevant units, and groups, a special registry has been set up as well. And if we look at the beginning of the year and at how things stand today, we'll see that the number of those who were thought to be missing in action has decreased by 50% as compared to the beginning of the year, so there is a 3-time difference. Of course, this work has to continue and it has to be improved. Rest assured, we'll do everything to make sure that the losses are brought down to a minimum. Mr. President, the issue of MIIs is very important. I know that even among our colleagues, journalists, there are family, close friends who are participating in the SMO and who were considered to be MIIs. I think everyone will support you if we'll ask you to give an instruction to make sure that there is a special control, special surveillance of the issues from family. We have to remember about the issue of those who are missing in action and those who have been taken prisoner. Well, the instructions are there, and we're working together with the Ministry of Defense. Let's work with the audience. A couple of questions, several questions from the room, from the audience. Third row of this section, I think the Mir TV company. Yes, the lady in red. Thank you, Mr. Peskov. Good afternoon, Mr. President. Elena Dashkova, Mir TV channel. The issue of phone fraudsters is very acute. What about the measures taken by the government? Have they worked? Do you have any statistics on how we've managed to bring down a number of citizens who've been defrauded by these fraudsters? Yes, we've got some statistics. These measures have worked. They've yielded some results. And I think a lot has and should be done to address this issue. The number of such crimes has decreased by 7%, as the Ministry of the Interior has briefed me, and the losses have decreased by 33%. On the whole, there are some positive results, but I would like to address the citizens of the country. Fraud is still very much an issue. And the the more sophisticated our devices are getting, the more sophisticated our life is becoming. Fraudsters are becoming increasingly sophisticated in their turn in the ways they use to defraud the citizens and to swindle them and take their money. So whoever talks to you, whoever is calling you, and given the AI capabilities, if someone starts talking to you about money, about property, just put down the phone. Just put down the phone right away. If someone is talking to you about property or money, not a single word. If banks, or there's someone personally, if you want to address an issue, just go in person, see someone from the bank. I would like to ask you not to talk about money or property on the phone. More questions from the room. I would like to ask the journalists to be as succinct as possible. Yes, we see a young man here, young gentleman, Children's Editorial Office. Good afternoon, Mr. President. My name is Maxim Zakharov. I'm with a Children's Editorial Office. Recently, you said that sometimes you drive a car across Moscow streets incognito, and when you speak at meetings or right now, you are in possession of a treasure trove of information. I would like to ask you how you get this information about what people drive incognito, that I drive myself. I'm just saying that sometimes I drive without the accompanying police cars and all that. And, these voyages, as it were, are useful because from the car window, it's very interesting to look not just at the road I usually take to get from my residence to the Kremlin and vice versa. It's very interesting to look at different neighborhoods of Moscow. It's interesting and curious to see what's happening around. As far as verified information I get is concerned, I think the most important thing that provides me with that information, well, this is an event like this. Just imagine 2.5 million people have sent their messages and questions to the direct line. Of course, it's impossible to cover all of that and process all of that in the course of these several hours we've got. But, 2.5 million messages. There are about issues that people hold dear to their heart. This will be processed by AI for a year. This information will be processed by my loyal assistants from the Popular Front. This is the front. This is the source of information about what people really need and what they're interested in. And of course, I get information from special services as well as from law enforcement agencies. And I'm trying to use that information not just in an aggregate form to personalize, but also I'd like to see the original documents, and I'd like to meet people, personally talk to them when I have work and visits across the country. It's very important to talk directly to people because it gives a lease of fresh life to what we're doing. You see the needs of the people, and of course, polls by social studies agencies. Of course, people take these polls differently, but mostly these are polls of a professional nature. And of course, sometimes people are not happy with average numbers, with mean numbers, because these figures have nothing to do with what people are facing in real life. But these average data are important because they give us an understanding of what is happening in general across the country. So this is a variety of sources which provide me with a fairly objective picture of what is happening in the country. A couple of more questions from the audience. Yakutia, yes, please. Good afternoon, Mr. President. Oleg Kolosov, Saka TV. We represent the coldest place in the world. Right now, the temperature is minus 50 degrees centigrade, you know. The climate is inclement, and in that inclement climate, we highly cherish warmth and unity. 2026 is a year of unity of Russian nations and peoples, and we're all aware that the special military operation is bringing unity. And as a military correspondent, I know that our servicemen are fighting shoulder to shoulder, regardless of their religion or ethnic belonging, and they have this chevron, this shoulder patch, God with us, we're Russian. So what kind of patch would you choose for this year of unity? And next year we're opening a unique center of epos and arts, and also an arts school that is being built at your instruction. We'd like to take this opportunity to invite you. Yakutia is also known for its cinema, and right now a film is being made about a hero of Russia. So we will look forward to getting your support for this movie, as well as for both for making the movie and also what kind of measures will be taken to support different Russian peoples and nations. We pursue a deliberate policy of supporting different languages and cultures and arts of different peoples living in the Russian Federation. We're doing that via school, via media, via literature. You've mentioned several avenues in Yakutia, and the people of Yakutia are very talented. It's no coincidence that a music school is being built there. You know, I once visited that, and it's developing, you know, young people, young children from all across different settlements and towns and cities get together, and they engage in creativity. Cinematography has taken off in Yakutia as well. Yakutia is developing very fast. Moreover, Yakutia is also providing us with servicemen which are unparalleled across the world, I suppose. And you've mentioned this film, this movie. We will certainly do everything to support that film once it's released, and before, in the run-up to its release. And as far as this year of unity of Russian peoples is concerned, I think this is the right thing to do, especially amid the special military operation, because when a country is faced with such trials and tribulations, it rallies together. And as you aptly mentioned, people, when they are under fire, don't care what religion they profess, what ethnic group they belong to. You know, there's a joke in such situations, if there is a God, and I do not doubt there is a God. But, you know, people are divided in different churches, but that may be very well may be so, but we all share common values, all peoples of the Russian Federation. And in the course of the special military operation, that is something that is getting increasingly to the forefront. We can see that. It's apparent and evident. We see that very well. You know, I just remembered, we have just spoken. The reports on the taking of the city of Seversk. You remember I had a commander of one of the brigades in my office during that report. Once the reports were over, the video link was shut down, and I started to talk about the zone he was responsible for at the front line. We spoke about some daily matters, and all of a sudden he tells me, you know, well, I don't feel comfortable because I'm here, whereas my comrade, head of the very same brigade that is fighting shoulder to shoulder, he is back there at the front line. You and I, we're talking about addressing some daily needs, whereas he is fighting, but he's just as good as I am. And I tell him, who is he? And he said, he's from Dagestan. He's from a small ethnic group in Dagestan. He's a genuine warrior, a Russian patriot, as well as a brilliant commander. And I said, you know, it's impossible for everyone to be here. You are here because that the commander of the group of armies has decided, but someone needs to stay at the front line. But I say, let's try to give him a call. I took up the phone, and via military connection, we managed to find that second commander of the brigade. He had spoken about, he was at the command point on site. We spoke, and then I passed the phone to the commander of the brigade, who was with me in the office. And you know what's interesting? Among men, there's this cool, you know, when they call one another. But, you know, when real officer says that, it's really something special. He says, hi, brother. Yes, men do call that one another, but, you know, when real military commanders say that, this is testimony to the unity of the peoples, nations of the Russian Federation, who will do everything in our power to strengthen this process and to push it forward. Thank you. Another question from the audience before we get back to our moderators. First row, the blue jacket. Yes, please. Introduce yourself. Vladimir Sarokov, good afternoon. RBC Radio next year ushers in many changes in taxation with a view to mobilizing budget revenue. What's the financial effect you're expecting, and will you relax these restrictions and tightenings once the situation gets better? Yes, this is a very acute issue. We've been discussing it at the government and also at the president's office. And as I said, the most honest way out is an increase of the VAT. Is that what you're asking about? Well, the goals, the objectives are very simple. Our task is to secure a well-balanced budget. On the whole, we've managed to accomplish that task. I've spoken about that to a certain degree thanks to this decision we've taken. As far as that is concerned, there is a number of issues to be addressed. The government needs to pay attention to that, and we spoke about that on multiple occasions. When the tax burden goes up, a temptation arises to avoid paying that tax. In the past, this task was very much widespread. Right now, it's becoming increasingly relevant. We need to dismantle the shadow economy and make sure no one is trying to hide their income from tax. And when taxes go up, we have to make sure that this does not stay on paper. It has to translate into real increases for the budget revenues. I take your hint. Is that going to be forever? No, certainly not. The end goal is to decrease the tax burden in the future, and the government assumes that this is where we're going in the end, and this is what I'm looking forward to. There is a surge of issues from self-employed, from individual entrepreneurs, because there are millions of those in Russia, and changes to taxation are a source of concern for many. We have a question from Denis Maximov from Lubertsi. Let's give him a call via video link. Denis Vladimirovich, if you can hear us, please ask your question. You know, when the prices on fish will be regulated by the government, and when will those be accessible, affordable to the population? You know, price regulation, it's very dangerous, because once we start doing that, the goods will start disappearing from the shelves. In a market economy, this is the result you get very often. Yes, there are certain spheres where regulation is required, is needed. As far as essential medicines are concerned, there is a certain ceiling you cannot go beyond. But if these are regular goods, you know, it's tricky regulating the price on those goods. But you are correct in that fish on the table of Russian citizens is missing. There are certain norms, and so far we are lagging behind those norms. But we have to go a different way about that. We need to improve the logistics. We have to make sure that the fish produce from the Russian Middle East can get as affordably as possible on the table of consumers in the European part of Russia. Transport capabilities have to be enhanced. We also have to address that via taxation. We have to create an environment to make sure that we continue building new fishing vessels. There are many issues that have to be addressed and that have to bring about the result we desire.
Please, if you hear us, ask a question. Hello, Mr. Putin. Hello. My name is Maximov Denis Vladimirovich from Liberty district, Kraskova. We have a family business. It's a bakery. For 8 years, we have a very convenient patent system for taxation. Since the new year, we'll have to pay an income tax and we'll have to pay the VAT. That is why we need an accountant, and this will be additional costs for us. We understand that our country is in a difficult situation. We understand that the increase of taxation is necessary, but I think it would be more useful for the state and for us individual entrepreneurs to increase our patents 2, 3, 5 times. It would depend on the volume of our produce. Well, the situation is difficult. We are not optimistic about the future. Some enterprises will close, some will go into the shadow economy. What can be done about the legislation? Well, this is your bakery behind you. Yes, it is. Mashinka, was it called in honor of someone? This is my eldest daughter. What you're baking there, is it delicious? Well, I hope so. I hope so. Well, Denis Vladimirovich, regarding the essence of your question, first of all, there was a form of benefits for the small enterprises, what was registered by the government, what was done by the government. Especially it regards the trade business and the individual entrepreneurship, small enterprises. The process has started. That means they mean that we use these instruments, these forms of business, for uncontrolled input of uncontrolled black input. That is the problem. It doesn't mean that we should create problems for the production business. I'll pay attention to that, and I'll make the government pay attention to that, and the relevant governmental structures. As for the accounting, please do pay attention to the fact that it will not be necessarily compulsory to spend additional money for accounting. Big financial institutions provide different services, banking and accounting services. You could ask, for instance, a Sberbank. They can help you with that. And this will not bring additional costs for your business. It will not bring any additional financial burden for you. But you are right that the production business with the transfer to the new taxation should not suffer. And I promise you that the government is going to face this issue. But anyway, I wish you success. Success to your Mashinka, to your daughter, and to your business that has such a beautiful name. Well, maybe you can, on my side, I will work with the government regarding the support of your business and other businesses alike. Thank you. By the way, an important piece of news, central bank reduced the key interest rate down to 16%. So we are moving forward. You know, the central bank is always under pressure. There are many disputes about the key interest rate. The difference between the inflation rate, by the end of the year, it will be less than 6%, 5.7, 5.8, maybe 5.6, and the key interest rate is at the level of 16%. The expert expected a possible decrease by 1%, but by the law, the Bank of Russia is independent. And I try not to interfere into the decisions that they're making. I try to make everything so that they were not influenced from other institutions. But the Bank of Russia does everything necessary, and they're very responsible in their work. In the end of the last year and in the beginning of this year, we spoke to the governor of the central government, to the economic bloc of the government. We said that it is necessary to target the inflation and to make the necessary decisions so that the macroeconomy of Russia would be healthy, would be solid, so that the economy of the country had a solid foundation. The difference between the real inflation and the key interest rate is one of the lines of criticisms against the central bank. What is the problem? In reality, there are many problems. One of them is that, as I have already said, I have mentioned it, if not, I will say it now, one of the problems of today is the reduction of the investment activity. During the first 3 quarters of this year, minus 3.1%. But the Bank of Russia registers a little decrease. But the activity, serious continuity, continues in the credit sphere. The number of credits that is being provided is almost not reducing, not significantly. This is the merit of the central bank. That is why it is necessary to be really careful and cautious, so not to avoid the surge of inflation. So it would not be necessary to take any steps backwards. So the worst thing are the fluctuations, and the Bank of Russia strives to reach stability in this sphere, which is of paramount importance, and we have to agree with that. Well, the decrease of 0.5% or more, well, I'm not going to give any evaluations at the expert level. There are really good experts that will give their evaluations. But the reaction of the real economy sector, well, will be very well expected. Well, I know what it could be. According to the official data, official inflation is one thing, but the real inflation is different. We receive many questions about this. We ourselves go to shops and we see how expensive everything is. Well, the average inflation is around 6%. everything is getting more expensive and prices are growing very fast. Well, Maxim Chupayev from Samara region asks why everything is so expensive. Even poultry increased. The price of poultry increased. I have a 50,000 ruble salary and I cannot satisfy the necessities of my family. I cannot feed them. We receive different questions from the Rostov region, for instance. A kid is asking a question. He's asking why the prices for bakery is increasing and the salaries of my parents not. I've already mentioned when people see some average figures, average indicators, it causes questions because average figures generally do not coincide with what people see in real life. We say that the inflation will go down, the prices will go down. Maybe it will be 5.7, 5.8% lower. But the food inflation, for instance, can be even higher, and it is higher. And it depends on the food basket that a person needs. If, for instance, these are protein products, poultry, for instance, then it affects the budget of the family. It's nothing good about that. We also need to point out one more thing. Maybe last thing of the year before that, we were critical about the actions of our colleagues from the government when the prices for eggs have inflated, but now they have decreased by almost 10 or 16%. So these are important factors. Without any doubt, we need to follow closely what is happening in every segment, with every group of population. Regarding families with kids, everything should be centered around families with kids. Just saying that additional measures of support for families with kids will be introduced since the 1st of January next year. For instance, of 13% of the personal income interest for individuals, the families where they have modest income, less than 1.5 minimum wage for a person, of 13%, 7%, most of it will return to the family. I hope there will be a real way to support families with children. And if income of a family is less than 1.5%, then they need additional benefit for every child in the family. Well, I'm not even speaking about other components of supporting families with children. Of course, it is not enough. We understand everything. It's not. We all understand that it is not everything. But what can we do? We will keep improving this system because the policy of the state on the federal and regional levels should focus on that. And of course, we'll try to increase the level of salaries so that the income, especially the income of families with children, would not decrease. When we see that when the labor income is increasing, the government should keep their support measures. Well, it is a very well-known topic when a family with children receives some kind of benefits, support, then the labor income increases, but the state reduces the benefits that the family has been receiving. So when the income increases, the overall income with the benefits should not be reduced. I'm returning to this topic, and I ask the government to pay close attention to this topic because it is senseless. The budget does not receive anything from that and cannot receive, and we're destimulating the labor activity of people. Let's return to the audience. Let's give the floor to several people. Well, this sector, we haven't asked anyone from that sector. 2 men, please. Hello, Kristina Smirnova, Tumenska Vremya TV channel. 2 men. I have a question about an unusual facility, 3i Atlas, that is now approaching us. And today, on the 19th of December, well, maybe it's a ship with an engine, maybe just a comet. Well, it will approach Earth. Well, the question is, what the special services tell you? Is it truly an artificial object? There are many theories about that. Tumen is the thermal capital of any of our country. If these are, we're ready to receive any guests, but these are guests from the space. Well, we're not sure about that. So this is the first time we are summarizing all the results on Friday. So, Mr. Putin, if you know about the existence of aliens, please blink an eye. Well, Christina, you said was your name. Well, what I'm going to say, but it should be strictly between us. This is secret information. This is our secret weapon, but we will use it only in a truly critical situation because we are against any weapons being deployed in space. Our scientists know what is happening. This is a comet from another galaxy. That is why it behaves differently compared to the comets from our galaxy. It has a different surface. That is why when it is closer to Sun, there are different processes happening on it. As well as regarding the tail of this comet, it has a different appearance. It's quite big, from 2 to 6 kilometers. Well, let's see. The moon is from us on the distance of 300,000 kilometers, and this object is hundreds of millions kilometers away from us. So we will send it to Jupiter. And in the beginning of the next year, this comet will go out of the solar system. Thank you. So you're not going to blink your eyes. So no. Please, Belarus. Thank you very much, Mr. Putin, for giving me such an opportunity. Victoria Sienkiewicz, First Informational Channel. The President of the Congress said that Belarus and Russia should be together. I'm sure you have heard this. We could also build a bridge. It's not the first time we're doing this. We are truly glad that the Oreshnik is entering combat duty in Belarus, as well as the tactical nuclear weapon was given back to us. But not everyone is glad about our union between our countries. Poland closes its border to other countries, or the polygons are being created, or our assets are being, they want to rob our assets, they want to steal our assets. What can you say about the actions of these European baby pigs? Thank you for this new diplomatic term. What can you say about the actions of the Western countries on the western borders of our union? As for the term that you have mentioned, Well, I was speaking to the military, and I said it. I was not really meaning anyone specifically. I usually never say anything like that. I was speaking in general terms. I was speaking about a group of people, as legal people say. All of this appeared to quite a long time ago. But the relations is what really important, relations between our two countries. I watched live the speech of the president of Belarus at the All Belarusian Summit, Congress, and I have to congratulate him on that. His speech was very meaningful and excellent. I would like to express my gratitude for this assessment of the state of Russian-Belarusian relations. As for the security issues, we are solving them bilaterally, as well as the context of the CSTO. You have just now mentioned Oreshnik. Alexander Grigorievich spoke about the Russian tactic weapons, nuclear weapons that is being stationed on the territory of Belarus. We regularly have exercises of the groups of armed forces created by our ministries of defense. We are closely cooperating between each other. The security of the Union state is in very reliable hands, and it will be guaranteed without any doubt. Well, it was Belarus. Maybe our guests from NBC, maybe they would like to ask the question. Please, could you give them the mic?
We do not consider ourselves responsible for the death of people. It wasn't us who started this war. This war began after the coup d'etat, anti-constitutional coup d'etat, armed coup d'etat that happened in 2014, and the start of fighting on the part of the Kiev regime heads against their own people in the southeast of Ukraine. On our part, we stopped short of recognizing the autonomy independence of the then breakaway republics of Donetsk and Lugansk. And after we had been deceived and the Minsk arrangements hadn't been implemented, we had to resort to the armed forces to conclude that war that had been started by the Kiev regime with the support of the Western countries. And President Trump is taking serious efforts to conclude this conflict, put an end to this conflict, and I said on many occasions that he is quite sincere in this undertaking. And moreover, during the meeting with President Trump in Anchorage, we agreed upon and virtually approved the proposals of President Trump. So saying that we reject anything is inappropriate and has no grounds. At a preliminary meeting in Moscow, a proposal was made to us, and we were asked to make certain accommodations. When I came to Anchorage, when I arrived in Anchorage, I said that those would be difficult decisions for us, but we still are in agreement with this trade-off proposed to us. So saying that we reject anything or turn anything down is inappropriate and groundless. So the ball is entirely in the court of our Western so-called opponents, the chiefs of Kiev regime, most importantly, and their European sponsors. We are ready for talks, and we're ready to conclude the conflict by peaceful means. A couple of more questions from the audience. Belgorod, for example. Good day, Mr. President. Belgorod TV channel. Definitely, I must mention that we will be so happy if you find the opportunity to visit us. And today, the frontline Belgorod region, as well as in other borderline regions, has the issue of communication that is high on the agenda. The UAV attacks, notifications, and remote education for our kids, and diabetes. Children with diabetes have their sensors connected via mobile internet, and that fails without mobile connection. So will you please introduce the sensors for diabetes children, put on the white lists so that they work even during the peril of attacks? And compensations. We receive compensations for the housing that was lost and the second house that was lost and now that has been cancelled. Will you please help resolve? Just wait a second. The second part, for the second home destroyed. So, like if two houses have been destroyed, and this is true for some minor number of families, and people take mortgage loans, will you please provide compensation for the second home lost? Thank you. Well, I'll find with your final point. I'll start with your final point. Will you please provide compensation for the second home lost? Thank you. Well, I'll find with your final point. I'll start with your final point. We will definitely work that through, and such matters crop up when we have to respond to emergencies like fires and floods and etc. Here, things are even more dramatic. But such matters, in that system and frame of reference, when we struggle with after effects of the calamities and disasters, can be resolved, and we will do that. And secondly, with respect to connectivity and services and the related issues of education, remote education, and diabetes sensors control, I gather that it's not a matter of the intake of certain drugs, but the control and timeliness of taking these drugs. When the internet is disconnected, it is hard to control the glucose level. I know what you're talking about. So there are restrictions related to the security matters because of the drones attacks. And you mentioned the services, and some of the components of those services are stationed abroad. In this case, it's easier to select targets for attacks for our adversaries. And here we have to switch to domestic software and our own domestic hardware too. This is a way out to see the operation, the functioning of many of these services. And secondly, we can also use the capability of the international manufacturers operating here, but they should transfer their services to Russian soil. Definitely, we will have to work on both of these matters that you have raised. Thank you. I can see no plate, no sign. paying dues to your modesty. Good afternoon. My name is Jacob Schein. Politica newspaper from Serbia. Thank you for giving me the floor. I apologize for my command of Russian, but I'll bet you understand me. You started the normalization of relationship between Russia and the United States, and all that you get is more sanctions imposed on Russian companies. Some of them are on Serbian soil. I'm referring to NIS. Can you tell me what the Serbian people should expect and what the future developments are likely to be? And my second question is about your meeting with Donald Trump in Alaska. You discussed a new security framework, and there was some secret information about cooperation with NATO. And when Clinton visited you, you also volunteered to join NATO. But I just wonder whether some degree of cooperation between Russia and NATO will be existent in future to avoid a war and live normally. I'll bet that I hope that next year we'll have more talks about peace than war. Thank you for your question. We also would very much like to live in peace next year, getting rid of military conflicts, and I reiterate, we actually would very much like to resolve all contentious issues by way of talks. And I hope that you will be in agreement. We'll have to eradicate the root causes of the conflict so that it shouldn't happen in future for the sake of a lasting, durable, and just peace. With respect to prospective cooperation with NATO, we had it in the past, and we also discussed a membership, first of the USSR, then of Russia, in NATO, but in both cases we figured out that we were not welcome there, and the promises that had been given to us that NATO would not expand had been ignored, and we had been deceived, and there had been several waves of expansion of NATO, and that entailed moving military infrastructure closer to our border, which causes our legitimate concern. And in this context, a new security system or framework in Europe is very relevant, rather relevant. Even before the breakup of the USSR, some clever people in Europe, like the social democrats in Germany, proposed to establish a new security framework in Europe, not expanding NATO, but establishing a new security framework with the participation of the US, Eastern Europe, and Russia, so that no one should be left behind or put in a difficult situation. Actually, now we don't require anything untoward or extraordinary. We're not saying that a country should not be able to select a way of protecting itself, but this should be a way that wouldn't threaten anyone, including us. Would not require anything that wasn't voiced before. We just insist on keeping the promises that were given to us by the Western partners. We were deceived, actually bamboozled, and now we want a reliable system in Europe. Now, with respect to NIS, it is a daunting task, you're right. I mean, that enterprise, that company, despite the desire to improve relations, which is seen on the face, Well, the sanctions continues, and that also touches upon our Gazprom Neft oil and gas company owning NIS. And Gazprom Neft invested more than $3 billion into NIS, turning that enterprise into a state-of-the-art and efficient one. And this is the main taxpayer to the budget of Serbia. We know what the developments around this company are, and we have an intergovernmental agreement with Serbia on non-acceptance of any kind of restrictions towards this business entity. And we assume and presume that the leadership of Serbia that is friendly to us will act on its promises and obligations. Otherwise, no one would know how to invest money into an economy, even if an intergovernmental agreement wouldn't be observed. But we have some thoughts of how to move forward together. And we've been pursuing dialogue with our Serbian friends on that. And I hope that we'll find a way out, a necessary, proper way out. If I may, coming back to the question, to the issue that you have touched upon already, but will you focus on it again with respect to the children's benefits accrual? Families with many kids apply for these. They work a lot, but, you know, even if they have an excess of 100 rubles of income, kind of they are not eligible to such benefits. And Gulnara is online, wishing to ask a question. Good day, Mr. President. Happy forthcoming New Year. I'm from Tumen region, the rural settlement of Bar. I received 27,000 rubles per month, and my husband is a driver, getting 80,000 rubles per month, and I work at a kindergarten as a tutor. And we expect more kids, and we participate in different contests and competitions. We have the Ready for Labor Independence marks. And I've been a mother with multiple children for 11 years, and I only once was entitled to a payout, to benefit. And last year we have an excess of income of 100 rubles, and in November an excess of income of 250 rubles. And because of that, we are not entitled to any benefits at all, like the travel benefits or food stuff payouts. And we have 6 kids, and we work a lot. My husband and I, we work quite a lot. And we work extra hours, we moonlight, and we have a small farm. We have chickens, and we actually would like to get some help from the government at the end of the day. Gulnara, actually, I have touched upon this matter in general terms, responding to previous questions of this sort. I fully share your view. You have mentioned the fact that you work a lot and your income goes up. At the same time, the support you receive from the government goes down straight away. So when you earn less, you receive more from the government. So it seems it's kind of destimulating. It's pointless to work more on the face of it. But I believe that this is a mistake, an erroneous policy on the part of the government, and I'm certain that the finance ministry and the government will heed us now. It's not about economizing and trading on families with multiple children is immoral. I agree with you. I think that colleagues will see to that, and this will be resolved with respect to bills, housing bills, and electricity and other bills. I just want to remind you and all people for whom such matters are of importance that, well, the general procedure is as follows. If the spending on housing bills and utilities bills exceed the aggregate income of a family by 22%, the government is obliged to provide support. Everything on top of that 20% should be covered by the government. Are you in the know of that? I'm in the know about all the benefits in some regions. Well, Moscow is a relatively well-to-do region, and here, up, well, from 10% of the spending overrun and upwards is the amount that is covered by the regional budget. And with respect to supporting families with multiple children, this is the cornerstone of our welfare policies, and I reiterate that, and I would like the regional and federal authorities to remember that before you pursue any policy, just think twice how it's going to tell on the incomes of people and families with many children in particular. And the main point of yours was about the reduction of governmental support. If your income goes up, we'll do everything to resolve that. Also, on the part of the working mothers, I hope that Gulnara is hearing us now. And here the child benefit is paid until the child turns 1.5 years of age, and many mothers say that at this age kids are not accepted to the infancy or kindergartens, and very many of them ask to extend this period to 3 years of age of a child. So the maternal leave lasts till a child turns 3. And the kindergartens accept children mostly when they cross the 3 years of age threshold. And, you know, mothers will not be tolerated if they do not return to work. And, very many mothers want the payout to support their kids to be extended till a baby turns 3.
Well, yes, until a child turns 18 months, the family gets the benefit. But, you know, the answer is very simple. There are budget constraints. There's no justification other than this one. But the government will have to think of something on how to address this problem and similar problems. As far as kindergartens are concerned, creche, and whether it's possible for a mother to go to work early, yes, this is one of the ways to address that. Not everything has been done to ensure that. A lot has been done, however, to renovate and rebuild schools. Right now we're working on upgrading our kindergartens. I would like to ask my colleagues in the regions to listen to me very carefully when issues on renovating kindergartens are addressed. Probably it would be best to also set up crash groups right away. This is the first part of the solution. Secondly, it might seem simple, but still it requires additional attention as well as additional expenditure. We need, namely, to increase the number of hours spent by children in creche and kindergartens, not just 18 hours, probably it has to be extended, but this in turn would require increasing the number of teachers and specialists looking after children, but that would involve increasing the staff, and the government needs to think on how to go about addressing this discrepancy, this gap between 18 months and 36 months. On the whole, however, we've got more or less a refined system for supporting motherhood as well as families with children. Just to cite an example, benefits are provided to women once they get pregnant and until their children turn 18, and sometimes this benefits can be extended until 23 years when students go to universities, if this is a full-fledged education, not just evening classes. As far as families with 3 and more children are concerned, we have to pay particular attention to this issue, this status of heroine mother. You know, it has been improved right now. It's tantamount to hero of labor. There's a number of benefits that come with that. There's another component. In the past, additional points were added to the pension, but only 3 children were taken into account when calculating the pensions, whereas right now a new decision has been taken when a pension is calculated. Not just the first 3 children, but the subsequent children are also going to be taken into account, and additional points will be added to the score which is used for calculating the pension. The government will continue improving and enhancing and fine-tuning the system of measures for supporting families with 3 and 2 and more children. Let's get back to the audience. It's been more than 2 hours, and we haven't noticed how time flies by. Kazan, did you want to ask something about Islam? Mr. President, good afternoon. Good afternoon. Thank you for this opportunity. Tatar Forum, the city of Kazan in 2026. As you're probably aware, Kazan is going to be the cultural capital of the Islamic world. The decision has been made by the Conference of Organization for Islamic Cooperation, and we know that recently Russia has been steadily improving its ties with the Islamic world as well as with the global south. In Tatarstan, Rustam Minikhanov is pursuing this agenda together with the foreign ministry and also as part of the strategic group for Russia Islamic world vision. What do you think the emphasis should be in Russia's ties with the Islamic world? And the second issue as follows. Is it fair to say that Muslims all across the world view Kazan, Tatarstan, and Russia and view it as what Islam should look like in the modern world? The thing is, the Islamic world is very varied, just as the Christian world is very diverse. You and I both know that, but I'm confident that the example of Tatarstan is positive in the highest degree, and many colleagues of mine from countries with the preponderant Islamic population keep that in mind. They follow closely the experience of Tatarstan, and that is a positive experience. That is a positive experience of coexistence of people of different religions and different ethnic groups, and Tatarstan is an exemplar in that regard. My congratulations to you on that. This has started with the first head of Tatarstan, and Rustam Minikhanov has taken up the baton, and he's doing well. And I'm not surprised that Kazan has been selected as the venue for huge international events for the Organization for Islamic Cooperation. Incidentally, Russia is an observer in that organization, and I was the one who initiated that. I addressed my colleagues and asked them to accept Russia as a country with observer status, and to our pleasure, this was accepted by all of our colleagues from the Islamic world. I was following that with enthusiasm. I was very happy. I was very pleased. That happened a long time ago, but this was the absolutely correct decision from us. More than 10% of the Russian population are Muslim. Well, I'm not gonna cite what the patriarch has told me on the subject, but, you know, Christianity, this is Oriental Christianity, Eastern Christianity, and, you know, as all of our core values are concerned, we share these values, they coincide. And Tatarstan is doing a lot in terms of spirituality, in terms of education, in terms of bringing up children. You know, a special academy has been set up in Tatarstan, which is of huge importance. We, in Russia, we have to prepare and educate experts in Islam. And the same applies to Bashkortostan. And just as we used to do that in the past, we intend to support all traditional religions of the Russian Federation. A little louder? Oh no, let's give a chance to the colleagues. The thing is, we've got this Kazan Forum, which is a yearly event to visit Kazan Forum this year. The thing is, we've distributed these events among colleagues. Usually I visit St. Petersburg and Vladivostok, whereas the chairman of the Russian government usually visits Sochi for a similar forum, you know, just to bring the very same people to all events. That's why we're trying to redistribute that among ourselves. That said, this is a very important forum, and we'll keep supporting it, because this is yet another thread, another tie that brings us closer together with our friends and allies in the Arab world, in the Islamic world in general, and I think without exaggeration, I can say in our ties with the global south. You know, 3 questions in total. Let's have some respect for one another. Our friends from China. Xinhua, please. That sector, yes. Mr. President, good afternoon. Xinhua Agency, as you said on multiple occasions, Russian-Chinese relations are at the highest historical level. Just this year, Tu and President Xi have met twice, whereas next year 2 important anniversaries will be celebrated. First, 30 years since the establishment of relations of partnership and strategic interaction between Russia and China, as well as 25 years since the signing of the agreement on good neighborliness and cooperation. My question is, what's your take on the achievements of the Russian-Chinese strategic cooperation over the last 3 decades, and what's your vision for the next 3 decades? Well, from the outset, I would like to say that I view President Xi as a reliable friend as well as a stable partner, my reliable friend as well as a partner and an ally of Russia we can count upon. And probably this gives us the key to understanding the development of the ties between Russia and China. These relations are developing in a steady fashion. Of course, the agreements you've mentioned are important, namely the establishment of the strategic partnership, but most important is practice, what we're doing in our daily interactions across all avenues and all directions. We've cited some figures. The statistics from Russia and China vary a little bit, but on the whole, it's around 250 billion US dollars. That's less than the countries of the EU taken together, but on a country-by-country basis, Russia ranks first with among China's trade partners. It's 250 billion between China and Russia, but with EU, China has a 700 billion US dollars trade. But if you take individual countries, then of course Russia ranks first. Of course, China has very big trade with Japan, with the US, with South Korea. But if we look at Europe, then we'll see that Russia ranks first. And these relations are developing, entering into different spheres and domains, and what is a particularly source of joy for me, it covers high-tech, education, humanitarian ties, exploration of outer space. We cooperate. And this is something that testifies to the high level of trust between our countries. We even cooperate in the military field, and we conduct joint drills on a regular basis. Our strategic aviation carries out patrols on a regular basis, and the same goes for our joint drills on the ground. And I think it would be fair for me to underscore once again that Russian-Chinese cooperation is a significant factor of stability across the world. Our defense ministries are in constant contact. They coordinate on the issues of the current agenda. So I'm hopeful that this is the vein in which we will keep continuing our ties with our Chinese friends for the near future and for the more distant future. Let's take another question from the audience. Is that lady in blue next to you? Yes. Good afternoon, Mr. President. Evgenia Volgina, Moscow speaks. I've got a question about demographics in general. On multiple occasions, you've stated that birth rates are going down in Russia, even though the material stimuli are still very much present. There are benefits, there are allowances, special payments, but right now we've got a very small generation of women who are in the age of fertility, and once this demographic trough is going to be over, well, that is a subject of discussion among specialists in demographics. Moreover, young people are more interested in building their career and creating a cushion, and also that begs the question of what kind of measures for material stimulation can be envisioned by yourself, what can be done and adopted to push young people to create families and give birth to children. And secondly, maybe we could talk to young people right now, telling them that they shouldn't wait too long, they shouldn't be, afraid of bearing children. Maybe kind of a value component, as it were. This is a question that is of great importance to all countries that have entered the post-industrial stage of development. Almost all big economies, all big countries, the very same picture is seen everywhere. And some countries are facing a dramatic situation. Let's take Japan, for instance, because the birth coefficient stands at 0.8%, whereas in South Korea, it's as low as 0.7%. This is the number of children per one woman who is in the age of fertility. Our birth rate stands at 1.5%, whereas we need at least 2%, which is a tall task. A lot is certainly dependent on the material conditions of our families. Certainly, families shouldn't suffer from a lower standard of living due to the birth of a child, and this is an important thing factored in. I'm not going to recount everything that is being done, starting from pregnancy until the children have reached 18 years, sometimes longer. 75 billion rubles was allocated several years ago for the support of birth rates in the regions that were requiring special attention. We're also trying to elevate the status of mothers with 3 and more children. I'm also talking about keeping in place the family mortgage. This is the thing we have to work on additionally, a mortgage at 6%. And we will keep doing everything in our power to convince young people to create families and have children as soon as possible. This is a very fine line we're walking, you know. First, young women in particular want to get some education, then they want to get additional education, make their first steps on their career path, and then it's 30 years and the first child comes and they don't have enough time or strength to get another child, and you know how it goes. We want to make having children fashionable, trendy. We want people understand what motherhood and fatherhood are and the joys they bring along. Let's get back to Naran Alexeyevich. He's been at the front line for 4 years, but he's got 4 children, however. You know, everyone is trying to teach others using their own experience, and we say that we've got to learn from others' experience, and this applies to all spheres of life. But that said, still everyone has to make their own mistakes and learn from their own experience. And once they've done something, they've faced something, they understand what they did wrong, what they should have done. You know, I spoke about that. I think I did that publicly.
The last meeting with the families with several kids. Well, there was a woman with a family of 8 or 9 children, and she said very beautiful words. She said that we have 10 children, for instance. Every time a new child appeared, we already had 5 or 6 people in our family, but a new child appeared. Every time we thought, how could we live without you all this time? Such evaluation, such attitude to children, the understanding of your own happiness in the state of motherhood and fatherhood, that is what should be communicated to the people, and that is difficult. But we all should do this. That is why I'm speaking to this audience and to your colleagues, representatives of the media, to cultural figures. They're all talented people. They make good films and performances. They write books. They make great performances in theaters. But please always think about this. When you write about something, when you show something, try to make a propaganda of, try to promote the motherhood, the fatherhood. This is important. But what's more important is what inside of your heart, and understanding just simple human happiness. There is an interesting story. We have a question from a girl. She wants to be, she wants to have a career, but she also wants to be a mother, but she's studying in a medical institution, medical university. As you know, the medical graduates need to work after graduation for several years in a place chosen for them by the state. So right now, these graduates don't know how their life is going to be after graduation. Just one thing, you asked one question, and there is one thing that I pointed out. In 25 regions of the Russian Federation, there is a positive demographic trend. It means that our colleagues working in the regions pay due attention to this issue, and it means that we have good results, even in this sphere of demography, which is really important for our country. 25 regions of the Russian Federation demonstrating positive trends in demographics. Let's see the video. Alina Valerievna from Kemerovo. Distinguished Mr. Putin, hello. I'm student of the 5th year of the medical university in Kemerovo. I'm ready to work to have compulsory for several years after graduation. So it will be when I will be 27, 30 years old. This is the time to create family, to give birth to children. The salary of young experts will not allow to do that. So I would like to ask, maybe are there any special conditions that will allow to combine these two things? Maybe there is a possibility to create financial support or housing support for medical graduates, medical experts of young age, because there will be young experts going to other regions. How the government, the state is going to help us with the childbirth in these conditions. Regarding the support of young families with children, we have already spoken about this several times. There is a range of measures to support families with children. When you say that you are on the 5th year of your education, so you will have to work for several years after that. No, it is what do we know, what we do understand about that? When someone is entering postgraduate education, since the 1st March next year, a measure is introduced that after this, if you have been studying for free, it means that a graduate will have to work as a doctor for several years at a region, at a different region. And in different places, it will be different. In a rural area, it will be shorter. In the bigger cities, it will be longer. But this will be the choice of every graduate. If they want to sign this contract about free education, then they will have to work compulsory after that, because they have received education for free. If they do not want this, they are not allowed. They do not have to sign this contract, and they can pay for their education. In this case, a student can receive an education loan and then return it during labor activity after graduation. As for the students, medical students, we're not speaking about compulsory work on in a specific sphere, in a specific city, in a specific area. We are only saying that a medical graduate who is going to graduate from a medical institution has to work according to his or her medical sphere in a medical institution where people can receive services according to the compulsory medical insurance. But as for the family and having kids, this is the choice of every certain person. We need to evaluate your opportunities and to take a decision. But as I have already said, additional education or the start of career or big income cannot be something, could not be the reason to delay getting. One important thing that we're speaking about attestation to become a doctor. Yes, for instance, someone is graduating from a university. This person is not being sent somewhere far away to a town or a village. This person just needs to work as a doctor in a public institution with the compulsory medical insurances. But before that, in the Soviet Union, people were sent to other regions, but now we do not have that. The decisions that were made, they're very soft, and this is a kind of a recommendation. Probably it would be better that we will not have to do this in the future, for instance. Without any case, this girl asked a question. She is right. What can we do? We need to improve living conditions, solve housing problems. In general, the state is trying to follow this track. This regards such a form of support as a paramedic in a village or a teacher in a village. There's a range of support measures that we need to prove. As for the pedagogical universities, they will also have to work after graduation. Well, everyone is really afraid of this decision. As we are speaking about graduates from pedagogical universities, this will not be applied to them. Please, let's work with the audience. The hero of Russia, our military journalist. Hello, Mr. Putin. I have a question. I think it's very important for many people in the regions that there are many problems. I'm speaking about front regions. First of all, I'm speaking about Donbass. There is a very acute problem of water supply. We have spoken a lot about this for many years. Now the situation is that not only in Donetsk, but in other cities as well, in Debaltseve and almost all cities of Donbass, the water supply is interrupted. Once in 2 or 4 days, it is low-quality water. People living higher than the 5th or 6th floor do not have any supply of water because it doesn't go this far. And we know that water is truly important. And the causes of that are the actions of our adversary. For many years, those who live in the Donetsk People's Republic and Lugansk People's Republic live with this problem. How long is it going to be? We cannot answer this question. Excuse me, Evgeny, you know what is the cause of this problem? The system of water supply, the main system of water supply, is beyond Slavyansk, on the territory that unfortunately is still under the control of the adversary. This problem can be solved in a drastic way when we will control this territory. But this is not the only solution. You know, there are opportunities of creating water pipelines, finding water on the territories that we are controlling, digging. One water pipeline has already been constructed, and now we are thinking about constructing one more. One of the key problems from the past is the loss of water, because the loss of water in the existing pipelines was 68% up to now. Now they have reduced, but still, this is around 50%. Of course, I have discussed these issues with the members of the government. Solving the problem of water laws means that we need to repair the whole pipeline system that was neglected for decades. Everything collapses there. In order to repair this whole system, we need to reduce the water loss up to 0%, and we need to invest so much money as the construction of another water pipeline. But I would like you to hear us that we know about this problem. It is very acute. We'll try to do everything to solve it as soon as possible. Thank you. One more question. BBC, United Kingdom, please, to ask your question. Thank you very much. Steve Rosenberg, BBC News. Well, I cannot see you. Just directly. Please. Well, Steve Rosenberg, BBC News, the question about the future of Russia. What is the future that you are planning, that you are building for your country and for your people? As it is now, will it be legal in this future any public being not in accordance publicly with something? Will you look for enemies inside or abroad in this future? Will there be disconnection of mobile connection, mobile internet? Will there be new special military operations? Or maybe Russia will follow another way? I remember you said once that the future is in our hands, in the hands of all of us. But in fact, the whole power in Russia is in your hands. It means that the future as well, what it will be it be the continuation of what we see now? Thank you. What will be the future of Russia? Are we going to punish legally for the actions who do not agree with the people? Are we going to penalize it? You know, there is a law that is being criticized about foreign agents, a distinguished colleague. I would like to draw your attention to the fact that we have not invented it. This law exists in several states. In the US, it was introduced in much harsher. There is criminal responsibility up to imprisonment for the activity in the political sphere if you are financed from abroad. We have nothing like that. According to our law, it is just necessary to declare that you have some sources of financing. We don't have any repressions. We don't have any criminal responsibility. If people stop engaging in political activity, or when they stop using foreign sources of financing, they are eliminated from these lists, and there are many of such examples. And what is going to be with BBC, because there is a million lawsuit from the president of BBC. Well, these are their family matters. They should deal with them themselves. I don't want to interfere. I just don't want to touch upon this topic, not to make it more difficult for you. There is such problem. There is a problem of falsification of information, fake news, and I think that President Trump is right. But it's not that important. You asked whether there will be new special military operations. No. There will be no operations if you treat us with respect. If you comply with our interests, respect our interests, as we always try to respect your interests. if you don't try to play dirty tricks with us, like it was with the NATO eastward expansion. You said that there would not be a NATO eastward expansion even by an inch. It was a direct quotation. As it said, as we say, you neglected our interests in the security. You deceived us, not you personally, but the Western figures created the situation of today with their own hands. And they continue to escalate the situation, speaking all the time that they are preparing for war with Russia. But as far as I know, you live here for many years. But I think you understand it, and those who speak about war with Russia also understand it. Are we truly going to attack Europe? This is nonsense. This is done based on the political reasons. And this is done to create the image of an enemy. They are creating an image of an enemy, and they're making Russia the enemy. Two Western leaders for several years in economy, in the sphere of social policy. Where is this green agenda when we see new coal plants being opened? Nuclear plants were closed and now they're returning to them. This is a mistake after mistake. And they are trying to make Russia an enemy.
They want to distract their people from their own mistakes with the help of the external affairs. And your questions constitute attempts of similar kind. You said that all the power belongs to me and is in my hands. Well, yes. President of Russia is vested with powers and credentials, and the borderlines of this power are clearly enshrined in our fundamental law, Russian constitution. And when legislative decisions are made, I enact this law by signing them, as in any other country. But I cannot tell you with a firm what proportion. Well, probably a big chunk of these laws is initiated by our MPs, deputies, or senators. These are hard facts. Obviously, the President of Russia has a lot of powers, but I believe that as this is a presidential republic, this is justified as of today. But in concluding, I must say that we're ready to work with you, work with the United Kingdom, Europe, and the United States, but on par, given the due respect for one another that should be in place. And frankly, incidentally, if we end up there, everybody will benefit. I have already recalled one of the conversations that I witnessed. The former Germany's Chancellor Kohl, back in 1993, he said that the future of Europe, if Europe wanted to be preserved as a standalone civilization center, should be together with Russia. And we are mutually complementary in a natural way, and we must work together. He said, well, look, Russia, despite seeing a slowdown of our economy to 1%, still ranks fourth in terms of GDP size by PPP, following China, US, and India. Russia is number 4. We are followed by Japan and Germany. The United Kingdom that you represent today, unfortunately, ranks 8th or 7th or 9th probably 7th or 8th on GDP size by PPP. But had we joined our efforts with the European countries, our joint GDP by PPP would surpass that of the United States. Well, this is all theoretic, but it's obvious that complementing one another and joining efforts, we would have flourished. Well, it's you who are waging a war against us, not us. You are waging a war against us with the hands of the Ukrainian neo-Nazis. We're ready to stop that fighting immediately, provided that Russia's security is provided in mid-term and long run, and we're ready to cooperate with you. Well, Steve, I think the audience will agree with me. Lately, we have seen and heard a lot of statements and actions on the part of European politicians that are mind-boggling. Why do you see they display this exorbitant support of the Kiev regime, and no one has been thinking about the European values, and they've been just supporting the Kiev for no reason, and they're even ready to pursue a conflict with the US president. Well, this outrageous policy, as you put it, I've just tried to account for that, answering the question by the colleague from BBC. They are trying to cover up their mistakes, to conceal their mistakes. In economy and finance, and they got in a gauge, and so it is very hard for them to move rightwards or leftwards. With respect to a possible conflict with the US president, there is nothing surprising about that, and it's obvious for any observer. The European elites used to support the Democratic Party and Madam Harris during the presidential campaign in the United States, and they were quite brazen in that, quite straightforward. Once President Trump was accused of meddling with elections, but nothing was proved, and all the Congress investigations ended in nothing. However, the political elites of Europe directly interfered, and that was quite blatant and obvious and uncovered. And they now hope that after the mid-term elections next year, the political landscape will change a bit and pressure on Donald Trump. This is why they are so insolent in the view of the forthcoming mid-term Congress election. With respect to separate political figures, they have been conducting themselves in an aggressive way, an unprofessional way, I think. Let's come back to domestic developments. And one final point with respect to those aggressive statements and declarations. I marvel at them. And I personally know the current NATO Secretary General, the former Prime Minister of the Netherlands. I used to pay a visit to the Netherlands, and he's a smart person, a clever person, a systemic one, and an efficient one. He used to be an efficient Prime Minister, and the economy of the Netherlands is in a good shape, and this is partly his merit. But now he's talking nonsense. Why are you talking this nonsense about a prospective war with Russia? They want to get ready and brace themselves for a war with Russia. Can you just read the new strategy, national security strategy of the United States, and it says that the United States is a key player and the founder and the main sponsor of NATO, and the bulk of the funding comes from the United States, as well as the ordnance and hardware and weapons. So the new U.S. strategy, security strategy, Russia is not indicated as an enemy, as a target. While the Secretary General of NATO is bracing himself for a war with us. Why so? Can he read? You are indisposing NATO against Russia to wage a war with Russia. At the same time, the backbone country of NATO does not consider us to be an enemy. I would question the level of professional competence. You should be quite attentive about your own duties, and you should also be open to what is happening around you. So we've been on air for about 3 hours. We've been live for about 3 hours, and we have around 3 million applications and questions, and lots of them are about the housing issue. Well, the family mortgage, people want it to be extended to encompass the second-hand residential market. Well, and this already encompasses 900 locations, but there are some of the restrictions critical for families with many children. They have to move to locations where they build new houses, but it's not universal. Yaroslav Sergeyevna from the Tomsk region recorded an address to you. Hello, Mr. President. We are a family with multiple children. We have 3 kids, and we actually want to resort to the family mortgage, but there are no new builds in our location. Those houses already built with flats that are apt for us are over 20 years of age, so we'd actually like you to expand the family mortgage to encompass such families as ours and cover smaller locations. Well, it was pre-recorded. The location Strzyżewo, the town of Strzyżewo, the town called Strzyżewo, an oilers town. So in this decision, is she listening? I think she is streaming us live. So this decision has been made, and for regions where they don't have new builds or have very low rates of construction, it is allowed to resort to family mortgage to buy second-hand homes, previously owned homes and flats. So there's always a number of issues cropping up. It all depends on the quality of construction and the quality of a building, because while you keep repaying your mortgage loan, the quality of that edifice may deteriorate. So you should be very particular and attentive towards a possible quality of that of a prospective edifice. So 880 locations are on that list. In case your location, your town, is not on the list, we will add it there. And yesterday I had a discussion with some of the colleagues from the cabinet who are responsible for residential construction and supporting families. And this is something I took away from that. Measures of this kind, when they were taken, were aimed at supporting the families and the construction sector. And the decision was not easy at all. I mean buying second-hand, previously owned homes with the help of family mortgage loans. Well, it's quite useful for the construction sector in the new build sector. But you know, with respect to the previously owned homes, there's a number of issues still to be ironed out and resolved, so that this support measure benefits not the construction sector but the families. Most importantly, as regards your town, if it's not on the list, we'll put it on the list. During previous call-ins, the deceived unit holders problem was raised, and escrow accounts were introduced. The construction company receives all the amount only when the building is commissioned. But actually now it turns out that the developers may receive all the money but not hand out the keys from flats and apartments to the unit holders. This is a video pre-recorded. Good day, we bought a flat in the city of Vsevolozhsk, but I haven't received my keys from that flat because there's always the postponement of the deadline by the construction company. They've been moving that to December 2025. I received this notification in July because of the connections issue. And on the 21st of August, this escrow amount was credited to the construction company's account, and at the same time I received a notification that the building is fully committed, but you know, there is no central heating and no proper electricity supply. And on the 13th of October I received a notification that the commissioning is postponed till April. I believe it's a fraud because I don't have my keys, I cannot move into my flat, and I don't have my money. So one of the few ways to impact the construction companies is to demand a forfeit payment. Since the pandemic, there's been a moratorium on penalties, and since then, this moratorium has been extended. Will you extend this moratorium once again? Yes, this is an issue that is well known. The decision to introduce this moratorium to support the construction sector during the COVID-19 pandemic was taken, and this is still in place with respect to penalties till the end of the year. I think this is sufficient, and I would ask the government not to extend this kind of moratorium. Flats should be handed over on time. There are some of the issues related to the delays in handing out keys from flats. And, you know, sometimes those apartments lack furniture, which is counter to the previously signed contracts, and the connections issue also may be pending. But, you know, I think that this moratorium track should be stopped, and I would ask the government to conclude that, and we need to act systemically so that the construction companies and developers honor their obligations. And definitely we should protect, most importantly, the interests of the people of ours. Another topic about the sports facilities and delays in commissioning. It may be virtually ready, but it will not be commissioned, like the city of Abazar saying that the ice arena in that location is not commissioned, and a local community even helped dig the pit, but of no avail. Another sports facility also is stalled in construction. So actually, for a number of years, The government has been trying to balance our budgets, and we've been repeating the same thing. If a facility, an installation is delayed, is not commissioned, if it's in progress, you should complete that construction first and foremost, not starting a new one. And please submit these data to the government, and we'll actually handle that. And I can see a placard saying, "I want to get married." So it's going to be a different topic, I think. Mr. President, good afternoon, Kirill Bajanov, 4th channel, Yekaterinburg Regional TV. Well, you're dressed up, you're groomed, you're getting ready to go to the registry office and get married. Yes, indeed. And this is not accidental that I have this sign, this placard. I know that my girlfriend is watching this direct line. Olga, will you marry me? Please marry me. I propose to you. I propose to you, darling. It all happened here. So, Mr. President, we would be so glad to see you at our wedding ceremony. And now my question is, Mr. President, it's not accidental that I have this placard, this plate. I will not ask about public utilities or anything else. I'm after support measures for young families. Myself and my fiancée have been together 8 years, and I was born into a family of a priest, and we want to have children, but I cannot afford children. If I borrow a mortgage now to buy a one-room flat in Yekaterinburg, I'll have to pay 50,000 rubles per month for 30 years. Mr. President, is there an opportunity to help and support the young ones so that these amounts of money should not go to banks, but should be invested into our future and our kids?
As a young man, 23 years old, I can tell you for sure this is going to be the greatest stimulus that will help push our demographic trends upwards. Well, I can see that you've been with your fiancé for 8 years, so you started dating when you were 15? Oh, that's great. Good for you. You know, in the Caucasus, among the peoples who live there, they've got very good traditions. They marry out their children when they're still in a very tender age, and I think we should all follow the example. You know, I know Ramzan Kadyrov has got a big family, many children, many of them are marrying, both young men and young girls. I asked him about that. He said this is tradition in the Caucasus, though that's great. Well, as for your particular case, I've said that there's a whole architecture of support measures that has been set up for families with children. It applies to families of students. I'm not going to recount all the measures because that would take too long. And I've spoken about that. And it's impossible, you know, to wait ad infinitum for material conditions to improve, for you to get education. Well, you can wait forever. It's best not to postpone for too long having children, because this is part of our life, and we've got to go through this life because, you know, giving birth to new generations, and I think you are also a believer, so I would tell you that this is probably the mission entrusted to us by God, and we'll certainly keep up these support measures despite certain tensions related to the need to rebalance the budget. We have still managed to allocate money for family mortgage. And, you know, there are some places, some spots across the country where the mortgage can be drawn out not at 6%, but 2%. And, you know, when you are together with someone you love, it does not mean where you live. It's not going to be, just a small hut. It's got to be a small apartment or a bigger apartment, but in a region where the interest payments on the mortgage are 2%, not 6%. You've got to have a look at all of that. What does your fiancée do? She's starting 3rd year, and I'm graduating from the journalism department. Well, yes, I've just said that there are several measures of support for student families. Just have a look at those. But, when young man thinks you have to buy this and that, you have to live somewhere, there are many issues to be addressed, but best not to postpone such fundamental matter as making family and having children. It's that sector, I see Zvezda. Is it okay, Mr. President? Yeah, sure. Good afternoon, Konstantin Kokoveshnikov, Zvezda TV. You've spoken about attempts at crushing Russia's economy, but I can't help asking about the unmanned vessels strikes by Ukrainians against certain vessels. Apart from critical energy infrastructure, there are attempts to strike Russia's export vessels. Several people have spoken up on that, in particular leader of Turkey, President Erdogan, a woman sitting next to me. She spoke about that, just a couple of days ago. There was a strike against a vessel in the Black Sea, in the Mediterranean Sea. There were several victims, several people dead. And should there be a blockade of Kaliningrad region, if that occurs to someone in Europe, what's going to be done? Well, let's start with the last part of your question. Let's hope this will not happen, but if similar threats arise, we will eliminate those threats, and everyone needs to understand that such actions will simply bring about never before seen escalation that would escalate this conflict to an unprecedented level and expand it to a large-scale military conflict. Everyone needs to understand that. As far as strikes against our media that deals with the military, you are well aware that these strikes are something we respond to, carrying out strikes that civilian infrastructure are concerned. You represented a media that deals with the military. You are well aware that these strikes are something we respond to, carrying out strikes that, in terms of their scale and power, are simply far superior to what the Kiev authorities are doing. But as far as damages are concerned to civilian infrastructure, to non-competence, well, that is something that is deserving of strictest condemnation, and will always respond. We are receiving news that another oil tanker has been attacked in the Mediterranean. Yes, they're pursuing some utilitarian purposes. They want to raise insurance premiums, but this will not bring about the result they are desirous of. This is not going to disrupt the supplies. This would only create additional threats, and Russia is certainly going to respond. Bashkiria, yeah, sure, go ahead. Good afternoon, Mr. President. Thank you for this opportunity to ask you a question. First, let me give you the greetings from the population of our republic. And on behalf of Bashkortostan, we would like to thank you for the attention you are paying to Bashkortostan, to our region. Right now, Tajikistan is building a Russia-Tajik industrial park on the Russian side. This project is operated by Bashkortostan. So my question is as follows. What other friendly nations can give a venue to similar projects where Bashkortostan's example can prove to be useful? Thank you. Well, we've been building a similar infrastructure in Egypt for some time. In the Nile area, there's a very good site there, and our colleagues from the Ministry of Trade and Industry and our counterparts in Egypt are paying a great deal of attention to developing this site. I think this is something that should bring about very good and positive economic results both for Russia and for Egypt. There's a number of other projects we're contemplating in other partner nations. Your example will certainly, your experience will certainly be used. I do not know what is the current state of this industrial park in Tajikistan, but I'm confident that given its well-developed technological and industrial base, Bashkortostan is going to play a pivotal role and will achieve all the tasks that are set before themselves. And I'll ask the government to provide you with the requisite support should that prove to be necessary. Yes. Please, well, if there's too much noise, we'll have to bring this to an end because it's not going to be possible to communicate with one another. Kokoshnik. Okay, let's see what this Kokoshnik is about. Well, Kokoshnik is something women wear. Good afternoon, Mr. President. Sorry, I'm very, very nervous. I didn't know I would. You know, there's a young man with this placard which says Kokoshnik, but you are wearing one. So, yes, women first. I would like to pick up where my colleague, the 13-year colleague from the first row, has asked. This is about you driving through Moscow without any external size, as it were. So do you think Moscow has been beautified? Has it become better? You know, because many roads are being built. The Moscow diameter has been built. So do you think there are fewer traffic jams? And secondly, what's going to happen to cars in the future? Will we all have to change our cars for Russian-built cars? You know, I've been saving up for foreign brands. I've spent 5 years, and right now, after the utility fee has been introduced, I will have to spend another 5 or 6 years to save some money for a new car. So what do you think? Let's start with the utility fee. Well, let's be upfront what this is about. The increase of the utility fee as well as rising prices. Well, we're certainly talking about strong cars of more than 160 horsepower. The government fully understands that. It mostly concerns citizens with the middle level or very high level of income in big cities, most of all. And it's clear, and we've got to be clear about that right now. This is due to the attempt by the Finance Ministry to secure another source of income for achieving a very noble, lofty task, that is technological development, technological sovereignty, and it certainly helps our car industry. You said, well, probably foreign cars are becoming increasingly expensive. Probably we should contemplate buying Russian cars. Well, I can't help recommending some Russian car. It would be very strange for me to suggest to you that you should buy something built abroad. But I do hope this measure is not going to stay in effect forever and that the choice our citizens have access to will get wider either as our incomes grow or as the fiscal burden decreases. Moscow, well, yes, we're all proud of Moscow, and rightly so. Sergei Sobyanin is demonstrating huge results. Well, I think it's 12 million people who live here permanently, plus another 3 million of those who visit Moscow on a regular basis because they work here. So 15 million people, that's what Moscow is home to on a daily basis. And of course, the issue of transport, this is a task that has been addressed in a systemic manner. It applies to underground, to roads, to conjunctions. On the whole, Sobyanin's team is succeeding in addressing the tasks in this field. Of course, there are some issues that still persist, and when I drive across Moscow, I say that, you know, I ride without a motorcade. Well, that doesn't mean that, you know, there is no siren, but